Hello again, everybody, for our time together. Time to learn some stuff about what's going on in the world. I specialize in the public school world, and so I want to chat with you about what happened not too long ago. I had the displeasure of being a witness to what I think is a crime. My colleague called it sinful. I think we're both right. Travesty is what we're talking about here. Really, really bad stuff. It is shocking and awful, and it's, as usual, another example of what goes on. What goes on, what in the old days, what I would say what goes on in public schools, but I think it goes on in more places than we care to admit, and I'm talking about rank hypocrisy, people in charge saying nice things, people with feelings toward an institution just talking without any proof or evidence as if they know what's going on. And what I'm talking about in this case is social promotion. So we had this one student who the family wanted to see if special ed was an option. This student's kind of a wayward child, has come to the high school, gotten into fights, not done anything academically, anything of note at all. I got along with him in my class. I'm not a very pushy guy. I don't try to force people to bend to my will. I'm just kind of mellow. It's not that I do nothing. I'm in everybody knows the hardcore pushover teachers where you just do nothing and pass. I'm not like that, but I don't yell and sit here and take off your headphones and take down your hood and do as I say. My way, that's not my way. My affect isn't like that. My personality isn't like that. I use other techniques to run a decent classroom. Softer techniques. I pick and choose my spots. Let's just put it that way. So, anyway, he and I got along, and he had gotten so many fights and so much chaos that the long-term suspension, and the household said, look, enough. What about special education? Maybe this is the answer because this young person is not getting the job done in high school. And so we have a meeting. It's a regular education teacher, that's me. There's a special ed teacher, one of the big shots at the top of the pile in the special education section of the district, like special ed policy. The student was there, the relative was there. So we had a meeting, like we all sat for 2.5 hours figuring out, is special education more time on tests, smaller classes, more individualized instruction? Are these things what's necessary for this young man? And at the end of the day, it seemed like it was. So they're going to see about getting him placement in a special education settings in various dynamics in various class. So, all right, so far so good. That's normal stuff. But we were asked, the teachers were asked, what do you know about the student's academic performance? What do you know about literacy levels, math? Because part of the problem is when you have so little work to deal with, you don't know if the child can do anything. I don't know about anything about literacy. I don't know anything of how well the student reads or can't read, any of that stuff, or same thing in math. So we got a copy of this student's report card from 8th grade. All right, student's a 9th grader. So we got the 8th grade report card to see where the grades were in middle school to try to gauge what to do and where placement should be in high school. So here's the thing. We looked at the middle school transcript, actually the middle school report card for 8th grade. And it was out of this world. The student failed every class except English, where there was the letter P instead of a grade. All the grades had a grade for numerical grade from 50 to 100. The highest number was 82. This student passed phys ed, passed gym. Okay, fair enough. All the academic grades were numbers except for English, which was a P. Now, I've never seen that in my 24 years of high school. A school has a grading policy. If the policy is pass, fail, and not in some and not the others, the most I've seen with that are for electives. So it's rare, but it happens that a school will have an elective grade, pass, fail, and then your regular subjects are your numerical grades. I have never seen a P for a major subject grade, which was English, and then numerical grades for everything else. And guess what? All the major subjects, history, science, math, foreign language, the highest grade was a 57. So my colleague and my first response was, what? How does that report card get a student to the next grade? And we actually brought it up. We're like, hey, wait a minute, something's wrong here. What's happening where a student gets all of the classes are failures except for gym, which is an 82, and English, which is a P, which makes no sense at all. And then that is a green light to go up to high school. That's called social promotion. And no wonder that this young man is in the high school and lashing out. Fights, roaming the halls, all over the place, no structure, just loose and wild throughout the building. Multiple fights, and then one was serious enough that he got extra long-term suspension, complete with a court case and a hearing and the whole thing. Well, part of it is that you socially promote somebody, they're not going to be prepared. And you and I both know that the intellectual class, the elite class, who love public schools and say there are just nothing wrong with public schools, everything should be a public school. We should get rid of charter schools. We should not have private schools. They should all be public schools. You and I both know the people that just rabidly defend that. They are always telling us there's no such thing as social promotion. That's a myth. That's a conservative talking point. That's a Republican talking point. Anybody who says that to you is either lying or they don't know what's going on. Because this kind of thing happens all the time. And this young person is going to get lost. The system has failed because we're not allowed to tell the truth anymore. We're not allowed to say, you didn't get done what you need to get done. If you're going to be here in this school district and you're going to get credit from us, you have to fulfill these requirements. And if you're going to be in 8th grade until you're 17, then that's how it's going to be. Oh, everybody yells and screams. That's so mean and so terrible. What do you think they're going to find religion and all of a sudden start working? Well, that's how it was. Everybody my age knows a friend or has a friend of a friend who is 13 and still in 6th grade, or 18 and still in 9th grade. They were kind of ostracized and made fun of, and they eventually left school and did something else. But we didn't lie about it. It may not have been the best course of action. It may not be the best way to do school, but that's how it was done. And it's not like there was blood running down in rivulets in the gutter because people were 17 and in 8th grade. They aged out or they just dropped out. Well, guess what? People are aging out and dropping out now. I don't know what the numbers are like, but it's not like the current policy of lying and social promotion is any better. Now it's turning into something worse because you have people in the high school who are wildly unprepared and are causing havoc for the other students. One last bit about human nature is this young man unfortunately had his grandmother die about 4 years ago, and he was close to her. His His grandma was a major player in his life. And my colleague, a woman, a mother, in a way that I can't, the woman who called this whole situation sinful, she pulled them both aside one at a time, the relative and the student, the grandfather and the student, and said, "You haven't grieved." Told the grandfather that your grandson hasn't grieved. And she could see it in this person's eyes. This 14-year-old wild child, alarm bells went off in her head, and I missed all of it, but alarm bells went off in her head. This young man hasn't grieved. She asked him, "Have you grieved? Have you cried? Because your grandmother died years ago." And he kind of mumbled maybe once, a little bit. And she saw it in his eyes that he was miserable and tortured on the inside because of his grandmother's death and had not let it out. She told him, "You need to grieve." This was amazing to me. I missed all of this. Not in a million years would I have said, look, this young man has emotions pent up inside of him and he needs to let them free. He needs a catharsis to let these emotions out so he can grieve for his poor grandmother, who he had a little pet name for and who took care of him. Mom's in prison upstate, alcohol and drugs. So grandma was the lady. Grandma was the caregiver. And the grandfather's a beautiful person. He's wonderful. I've never met such a well-spoken, dignified, in control based grandfather like that. It's this guy. I don't know how he maintains his composure with his grandson. And the grandson, maybe because he realizes a lot of his grandson's issues are not the grandson's fault. The school system, in a sinful move, moved him up to the high school, even though he was failing miserably in 8th grade. And then in one meeting, remember the lady who called my colleague who saw that he needed to grieve, who called this whole charade sinful? He's not one of her students. She just recognized it in his eyes that he needed to grieve. Talk about the power of human nature, women's intuition, the ability of mothers to know what is needed in those things, in that front, is amazing and powerful. And it's weird that it was such a terrible situation where all of these things have come out. Because it was like witnessing a crime. I asked to have this young man back in my class, even though I'm not a special education class, nor am I a certified special education teacher. But we have a small group and it's relatively quiet, and I think he would do okay. We always got along. So I asked to have this young man back in class, and he's going to get a new schedule for the special education aspect of his new schedule, but I'm not confident he'll make it. I'll try everything I can. I'll use what I can use and the resources that I have at my disposal and the connections I have with the staff at work to try to help him out, but I'm not confident that he's going to be okay. And this young man has been completely destroyed by what is in effect a liberal, progressive public school system that will not tell the truth and act on it with young people. And I'm going to say it, particularly with young black males. I'm surprised he has been put on Ritalin. He was on some kind of substance. He was on medication, and he didn't like it that much, and he wasn't dedicated to it. He said it did help a little bit, but so they already tried drugging this guy. And I don't think he needs that. He needs a structured, accountable system where he can be exposed to both academic and technical things, and then he can, with the help of adult guidance, choose a path. None of those things happened because you're not allowed to hurt anybody's feelings, and you're not allowed to fail people in the bad neighborhood, And you're not allowed to say anything that would be rough. And you're not allowed to do anything wrong, right? Anything like hold someone back or hold them back and leave, getting left back is now a bad thing. Tracking is bad. All the things that in the old days worked, they're all gone. And this young man is paying the price. And it's a damn shame. And it was a sinful crime, what I witnessed last week at the job. And it happens a lot. And I want you to think about that the next time you get together with your teacher friends or you get together with your buddies or whomever and they start laughing at the people who homeschool their kids. Because I had very quickly, I had a graduate school class last weekend, which is a total joke. And the homeschool thing came up, and everyone was the professor, this old lady, and somebody homeschool. Why would you, the socialization? And she, of course, the old lady. I know a kid who's homeschooled, and so he's just not socialized, and all this dumb stuff about homeschooling, right? The socialization myth. And she's like, I couldn't teach physics if I were home. That's not how you homeschool. Anyway, I digress. I want you to think of what I told you when you hear people sitting around chuckling and laughing about homeschooling. If that were my son and I saw that this kind of stuff were going on in the school system, I'd homeschool my kid instantly. And it wouldn't be a difficult decision. I'd do it immediately. Because I saw something sinful. I saw what is amounted to a crime, and it's going to cost this person his life. And I feel terrible. That's it for today. I guess that's your black pill for the report from school, our GED report, what actually happens in the school system. And I'll talk to you next time. There's no homework, nor is there required reading. Take care.